You can support Minutemen Media and the Wheat Chiefers by heading over to minutemenmedia.tv and picking yourself up some cool merchandise from the show, clothing, bags, mugs, and more. You can also pick up items from our other programs, as well as order custom prints from Art by Jay and join our community. The peninsula of New Jersey was first settled as the two colonies of East and West New Jersey, respectively. In these early days, one could say the border cut from the ocean to the Delaware River and was defined by an ancient pine forest, a tree line that demarked the extent of the Northern American glacier 10,000 years prior during the Ice Age. Providing the lumber that would build New Jersey over the last 350 years, this still formidable wood has a rich history and lore, from abandoned villages, the specter of the devil, to the last actions of the American Revolution. This brings us to the story of the infamous Loyalist Captain Bloody John Bacon and his band of pine robbers. New Jersey and South Carolina were the regions of the most partisan battling during the American Revolution and were more of a civil war rather than a fight against Imperial Britain. The intensity and viciousness of the war here was far above anything seen until the American Civil War, and the pine robbers could be likened to the James Gang, as they were a partisan guerrilla movement that continued after hostilities ceased in the respective wars. However, the brutality, vengeance, and violence by Bloody John Bacon surpassed anything done by the James Gang. The men under Captain Bacon were a legitimate provincial British unit when they engaged the Patriots at Manahawkin in 1781. This piney band got a jump on the still organizing militia, but was repelled. The provincials, made up of a motley crew of AWOL sailors, bandits, and unscrupulous sorts, blended into the vast Pine Barrens, and though the war was on hold, continued operations as the Pine Robbers Gang, also known as the Refugees. Their continued propensity for violence would culminate in the Long Beach Island Massacre in 1782. The massacre occurred during the United States and Great Britain peace negotiations. This horrific criminal act led Governor Livingston to put a sizable bounty upon Bacon. This would eventually lead to the final action of the American Revolution, a police action by New Jersey militia to bring in the Tory outlaw Bloody John. This was known as the Cedar Bridge Affair. John Bacon would be considered the last casualty of the American Revolution. 3 months later, on March 31st, 1783, he was tracked down as an outlaw scavenging a shipwreck off Long Beach Island. Quote, Pine robbers were loosely organized criminal gangs and marauders who were British sympathizers and loyalists during the American Revolutionary War and used the Pine Barrens of New Jersey to wreak havoc in the area. The Pine Barrens created densely forested terrain where concealment of guerrilla and criminal activities could easily be carried out. So, unlike many Tories who feigned friendship by day and were enemies of the Patriots by night, the Pine robbers were disgruntled British sailors, local outlaws, and immoral opportunists. The Battle of Manahawkin. Captain Bacon and the refugees, though in reality a gang, were still under the auspice of provincial soldiers. In late December 1781, they planned a raid on a small coastal village of Manahawkin for the new year. Some Patriot pioneers got wind of the attack on December 30th, 1782, and the militia convened at Captain Reuben Randolph's home to plan its defense. The next morning, the Pine robbers, around 40 strong, arrived by way of Barnegat. Attacking before Captain Randolph's militia were set, they killed one man, Lines Pangbon, and wounded Sylvester Tilton. Randolph regained control of the situation and repelled the raid. Bloody John never intended to battle for the town, rather to plunder its residents. Long Beach Island Massacre. In late October 1782, the neutral Belgians eagerly re-established trade with New Jersey as an end to hostilities with Britain ensured the Royal Navy would not confiscate their vessels. A Belgian merchant vessel on its way to the Caribbean became stranded upon the shallow shoals of Barnegat Bay while coming into port to resupply and trade goods with the New Jerseyans. A Loyalist sympathizer joined a crew supervised by Privateer Captain Steelman of a rogue galley Alligator to offload the cargo from the Belgian cutter a little more than a half nautical mile from the inlet shore. After a hard day of labor offloading the laden ship, this sympathizer sought Bloody Bacon out, and at their evening clandestine meeting planned a raid to take control of the salvage operation and obtain its loot. The next night, exhausted, Captain Steelman and his men camped out on the beach. Unaware of the plot during the ceasefire, Captain Steelman's camp lay vulnerable. Bloody John and his refugees stealthily crept up, their steps muffled by the soft sand. Then the bandits killed all 20 men as they slept. The heinous act was condemned by Americans and British alike. The pine robbers could no longer veil their illegal operations as Loyalists, but were now full-time outlaws. The Cedar Bridge Affair. The Cedar Bridge Affair, though considered the last battle of the American Revolution, in actuality was the final battle of the partisan civil war that raged in New Jersey. No longer Captain Bacon, as the British disavowed the scoundrel for leading the unsanctioned massacre on Long Beach Island, his band of cutthroat rogues were still at odds with the Patriots of the Pine Barrens. Patriot Captain Shreve, leading a contingent of Burlington militia, set out for Bacon and his men on Christmas Day, 1782. The New Jersey militia force consisted of light horse and infantry. These men were disciplined and well prepared. Unlike militia in many other colonies, these men had been at war for 8 years, with New Jersey being the front line of the fighting in the North. The refugees came upon the Patriots by chance when Captain Shreve and his men stopped at Cedar Bridge Tavern for rest. Bacon and his men were heading to the same watering hole and camped on a bluff across overlooking Cedar Bridge. Captain Shreve and his men would come to find that this particular tavern, though amicable to Patriots by day, had been a rendezvous for Tories at night. As the militia was at rest, Bacon and his cohorts barricaded the bridge. Now alerted, Shreve and his militia came upon Bacon's defenses. The refugees opened fire, wounding Shreve and 3 of his men. Undeterred, Captain Shreve ordered a full-scale assault. The Burlington force proved superior, wounding Bacon and 4 of his men, and was about to overtake the whole when the Burlington militia was attacked on its left flank. Unknown to the Patriots, the locals were Loyalist sympathizers. In the confusion, the injured Bacon and a handful of other criminals escaped. Remaining cool despite his wounds, Shreve took control of the engagement. His experienced militia didn't falter, with the front line holding down the pine robbers behind their defenses, while Burlington light horse forded the shallow waters, encircling almost the entire gang of refugees. This while simultaneously diverting some infantry to the left flank, quickly overrunning the locals who immediately surrendered. A few months later, Bacon, who had a bounty of 50 sterling on his head, was found in a tavern by Captain Stewart, where he was mortally wounded and his body was desecrated, thus ending the infamous career of the Pines Barren rogue, Bloody John Bacon. Bloody John was the last recorded casualty of the American Revolution.
Hear the scream coming over the palace.